London is home to a large number of foreign embassies representing countries from around the world. The exact number of embassies in London can vary, but it's estimated that there's around 170 embassies and high commissions within the city. Embassies play an important role in promoting diplomatic relations, providing consular services, and promoting the interests of their home country in the host country. For a long time I've been intrigued by the images of huge antennas high above various embassies around the city, but the reality is that they're disappearing fast in favour of other modes of communication. Only a handful of London's embassies have visible antennas on the roof in 2023, so in this video we'll be taking a look at the majority of what's left as I give you a detailed view on embassies and diplomatic radio communication in the City of London. I've pulled together every photo I have in my archive of embassy antennas across the city, as well as recent photos taken on a trip. If you have any more, then please drop me an email. Inside these embassies, a variety of activities take place. The primary function of an embassy is to represent the interests of the country it represents in the host country. This can involve meetings with government officials, attending diplomatic events, and negotiating treaties and agreements. Embassies provide a range of consular services to their citizens living in the host country. This can include issuing passports and visas, providing assistance in emergencies, and helping citizens who have been arrested or detained. Embassies often promote the culture and traditions of their home country through events such as art exhibitions, concerts, and film screenings. They also work to promote trade and investment between their country and the host country. This can involve organising trade missions, facilitating business partnerships, and promoting investment opportunities. Embassies may also engage in intelligence gathering activities such as monitoring political developments and gathering information on the host country's military capabilities. Embassies are not secret, but they do handle sensitive and confidential information related to diplomatic relations, national security, and other matters of national interest. Therefore, embassies are subject to certain security protocols and regulations to ensure the safety and security of their staff and operations. While embassies are not secret, they do operate under the principle of diplomatic immunity, which grants certain legal protection to diplomats and their families. This means that diplomats cannot be arrested or prosecuted in the host country, except in certain limited circumstances. Embassies are typically located in secure buildings or compounds, and access is restricted to authorised personnel. Diplomatic communications are also subject to encryption and other security measures to prevent unauthorised access or interception, which brings us to our first stop, the Embassy of Bulgaria in South Kensington. This seemingly normal building hosts an impressive log periodic on the roof today, but it did host some loops and caged dipoles until the early 2000s. Round the back, a wire antenna is still in place, and the hardware here is still very much in use. Bulgarian embassies in other countries have similar antennas located on their roofs as well. Over the road is another possible former diplomatic site with what looks like the mount for an HF antenna still in place on the roof. Diplomatic communications is the exchange of information between diplomats and their respective governments using radio and a number of different formats such as encrypted comms and data modes. These communications are typically encrypted to ensure confidentiality and security. Diplomatic radio communications are used for a variety of purposes, including the transmission of messages related to political negotiations, trade agreements, and security issues. They're also used to coordinate the movements of diplomats and other government officials travelling abroad. One of the key advantages of diplomatic radio communications is their ability to operate independently of traditional communication networks. This makes them particularly useful in situations where other forms of communications may be disrupted or unavailable. However, diplomatic radio communications are also subject to interception and monitoring by other governments and intelligence agencies. As a result, diplomats and their support staff must take great care to ensure that their communications are secure and can't be compromised. Embassies use a variety of communication forms in addition to shortwave radio. Embassies often have secure telephone lines that are used for sensitive communications with their home country's governments or other diplomatic missions. Embassies also use email, however, email is not always secure and can be vulnerable to hacking and interception. They may use VPNs to encrypt their internet traffic and protect their communications from interception. They may also use satellite links for secure and reliable communication in remote or high-risk areas. A diplomatic pouch may also be used. This is a secure method of transporting sensitive documents and materials between embassies and their home country's government. This is a container or bag in which official mail is sent, free from customs inspection, to and from an embassy or consulate. The choice of communication form depends on the sensitivity of information being transmitted and the reliability of the communication channel itself. Embassies often have shortwave antennas on their roofs to facilitate communication with their home country. Shortwave radio signals can travel long distances and are not affected by physical barriers such as mountains or buildings, making them ideal for long-range communication. Embassies may have a variety of other antennas installed on their premises to support their communication needs. The specific types of antennas can vary depending on the embassy's location, size, and communication requirements. Dipole antennas are a common type of antenna that are used for shortwave radio communication at embassies. They consist of two conductive elements that are connected to a transmitter or receiver. Yagi and log periodic antennas are directional antennas that are also commonly used for radio communications at embassies. They consist of a series of parallel elements that are arranged in specific patterns to focus the signal in a particular direction. Parabolic antennas can be used for satellite communication. These are designed to focus the signal from a satellite onto a receiver and can often be found at embassy sites. Loop antennas are a type of directional antenna also commonly found at embassies. They consist of a loop of wire that's connected to a transmitter or receiver. Vertical antennas, although less common, can also be found at embassies. The specific types of antennas found on embassies will depend on the embassy's communication needs and the type of communication system they use. Our next stop is the former Algerian embassy in Holland Park. This property isn't used for diplomatic purposes today, but this French-manufactured magnetic loop that's tuned by a vacuum capacitor still sits above the rooftop to the rear. An identical loop can also be found on the French embassy in Moscow. Embassies may use a variety of equipment to support their communication efforts. Shortwave radios are commonly used for long-distance communication and can be found in many embassies. They're often used to communicate with other embassies, government agencies, and other organisations around the world. Two-way radios are commonly used for communication within an embassy itself or between embassies in the same city. They're often used by security personnel, support staff, and other embassy personnel. Satellite phones are commonly used in embassies as well to provide reliable communication in areas where traditional phone lines may not be available. And finally, although less so today, radio scanners are used to monitor radio frequencies and can be used to listen in on communications between other embassies. Many types of radio traffic can be sent from these sites. Diplomatic messages are messages sent between embassies and their home country's government. These can include information about political developments, security threats, and other sensitive information. In the event of a natural disaster or political crisis, embassies may use shortwave radio to send emergency messages to their home country's government or diplomatic missions. Many countries have their own shortwave radio stations that broadcast news, music, and cultural programming to their citizens living overseas. Embassies may use these stations to broadcast information about their country to citizens living abroad. Embassies may use shortwave radio to communicate with their home country's military, especially in situations where other forms of communication may be disrupted. Shortwave transmissions sent by embassies can be encrypted using a variety of encryption methods to ensure that the information being transmitted is secure and cannot be intercepted by unauthorized parties. The specific encryption methods used for shortwave transmissions will depend on the embassy's communication needs and the level of security required for the information being transmitted. At the beginning of this video, I asked you if you recognize this shot. Well, the black and white photo was taken back in the 1990s for the CONIT project, a CD box set of number station recordings. This famous photograph, which I'm sure many of you will recognise, was taken behind the Dorchester Hotel. Sadly today the HF array has gone, but a long wire can be seen along with a couple of verticals around the front of the property, which is the Egyptian Embassy in Mayfair. Some other unidentified antennas can be found a few doors down. It's not uncommon for spies to go into embassies. Embassies are often considered to be a sovereign territory of the country they represent, which means they're subject to the laws and regulations of that country. This can make it difficult for law enforcement agencies to enter an embassy without permission. As a result, embassies can be attractive targets for intelligence agencies looking to gather information or recruit spies. Spies may attempt to gain access to an embassy by posing as diplomats, support staff, or visitors. Once inside, they may attempt to gather information through a variety of means, including eavesdropping, hacking, or social engineering. Despite popular belief, embassies do not have an official role in number stations. Number stations are shortwave radio stations that broadcast coded messages, often in the form of numbers or letters, to spies and intelligence operatives around the world. These stations are typically operated by intelligence agencies and are used to communicate with their agents in the field. While it's possible that some number stations may be operated from embassies, there's no evidence to suggest embassies play a significant role in their operation. Number stations are designed to be secretive and difficult to trace, and intelligence agencies typically go to great lengths to conceal their involvement in this type of operation. Some number stations are known to initiate forms of radio traffic from embassies in diplomatic missions, so there's strong evidence of a link between the two. Today, embassies are just as important as ever, and the level of communication between them and their home country is probably higher than ever. However, the impressive antennas that sit on their roofs, especially in London, are rapidly disappearing, with many removed in the last 15 to 20 years. So, next time you're in London, or in fact any capital city, keep your eyes to the sky. You never know what you might see.